I remember the exact moment I realized something was wrong. It wasn't a noise or a terrifying sight, but the silence. A silence that pressed against the walls of that house. My brother and I were adopted by a couple who, at first glance, seemed perfect. Practiced smiles, carefully decorated rooms, brand new toys still in their packaging. But at night, when the lights went out, the wallpaper seemed to breathe, and whispers came from the cracks in the floorboards. They weren't ordinary people, and we, two kids left to fend for ourselves, had to face something no child should ever know. A family pact that demanded blood, fear, and sacrifice. As the days went by, I began to understand that fear doesn't just live in the things we see. It's born from doubt. When you don't know if that touch on your shoulder was real, when you can't remember if you closed your bedroom door or if someone closed it for you. Fear digs into us, plants roots in uncertainty, and turns any home into a trap. And no matter how hard we try to ignore it, it watches us. That's when I realized it wasn't just about surviving the night, but surviving myself, the questions I was too scared to ask. I started to lose track of time. Mornings felt like pale echoes of endless nights. I heard footsteps in the hallway, but when I looked under the door, there was only shadow. One day, I was rummaging through the kitchen drawer, searching for my phone. Hands shaking, eyes wet, and I saw reflections that shouldn't have been there, in the silverware, in the knives. When I went down to the basement, expecting to find old boxes, I found a door I swear I'd never seen before, and behind it the sounds were different. Childlike cries, but they weren't mine or my brother's. It was as if the house collected echoes that didn't belong to it. Now, as I record this, my fingers are cold. My breathing is short, and I realize how much I underestimated this story. I could just tell you to subscribe to the channel now, but I'll be honest. Only do it at the end. If this video really pulls you in, if it stirs something inside you that you didn't even know was there, I want you to come all the way to the end with me to listen to every detail, because I promise you what you're going to hear here isn't just another story. And if you comment at the end, I want to know, did you make it to the end without looking away? With every step I take, I feel like I'm crossing an invisible membrane between what I once knew and something that was never meant to be found. My mind looks for explanations. Old cracks, wind at the windows, echoes in the pipes. But none of those excuses bring me comfort anymore. The floor creaks in patterns that almost sound like words, and my brother's gaze has changed. There's an unspoken question in his eyes, and I'm not sure I want to hear the answer. So come with me, but be careful. Not everything you'll see can be forgotten. That night, it all started with a subtle sound. Something scraping under the bed. I was used to the creaks and groans of the old house, but this sound had a rhythm, almost like fingers clawing at the wood. I looked underneath, expecting to see a fallen toy, but all I found was emptiness. Dark, damp, breathing. My brother was in the corner of the room, standing still, staring at the wall, murmuring something I couldn't understand. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and saw the door was slightly ajar, even though I'd closed it. Outside, the hallway looked longer, as if the house was stretching itself during the night. I went downstairs without knowing what I was looking for, feeling the cold crawl up my bare feet. Every step seemed to pull a sigh from deep within the house. When I reached the kitchen, I saw family portraits I'd never noticed before. Children that weren't us, faded faces, smiles scratched away by time. I rifled through a drawer, searching for something. A pocket knife, maybe anything. And I found a necklace with a strange symbol. 3 interlocking circles, burn marks etched into the metal. Suddenly, a dry creak behind me. The basement door opening by itself, groaning slowly, as if the house itself was breathing with me. In the basement, the air smelled of wet earth and rusted iron. The air felt thick, almost hard to swallow. Shadows danced on the walls, and unlit candles were scattered across the floor, as if someone had been preparing something and got interrupted. My fingers trembled as I touched the rusted handrail, and my heart jumped when I saw, in the corner, a figure. I swept the flashlight over. It was just an old, cracked mirror, reflecting my distorted face. But for a split second, I swear I saw someone else behind me. I bolted up the stairs, nearly tripping, and when I reached the living room, my brother was sitting in the armchair, eyes fixed on the blank TV screen. He whispered, "They're not going to let us leave." The walls felt closer that morning. Sunlight hit the window like it didn't want to come in. I started searching through the rooms, opening closets, digging through boxes. I found a diary hidden under a loose floorboard. The pages were stained, but I could make out a few phrases. "The pact cannot be broken. The children are the key. The blood renews." A shiver shot down my spine. I ran to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, but when I looked in the mirror, for a second, my skin looked translucent. I blinked hard. It was just my imagination, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. That night, I heard knocks at the bedroom door. 1, 2, 3. I opened it slowly, but the hallway was empty. When I turned back, my brother was standing, arms outstretched, holding the necklace I'd found earlier. "They told me to give this to you," he murmured, eyes fixed on the floor. I felt a lump in my throat. I took the necklace, but the chain was hot, almost burning. Suddenly, the light went out, plunging the room into darkness. The sound of footsteps started again, but this time, coming from inside the walls. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from an unknown number. "Don't resist." The house was no longer just wood and bricks. It seemed to pulse like a living creature. The floor trembled softly under my feet. The doors creaked even when locked, and there was a persistent smell of sulfur in the air. I went to the adoptive parents' room. On the wall, I saw symbols scrawled in charcoal, markings I couldn't understand but that seemed to stare back at me. I heard a noise behind the wardrobe. I pushed hard, and behind it, I found a small door. I took a deep breath and opened it. A narrow, dark passage snaked through the inside of the house. And there, on the floor, a baby's shoe, covered in dust. I crept through the passage, swallowing my fear with every step. The sound of my feet was muffled by the rotting carpet. Suddenly, I heard voices, low, whispering, arguing in a language I didn't know. I turned off the flashlight instinctively. The voices came from an opening in the wall. I peeked through. My adoptive parents were there, kneeling before a hooded figure. The room was lit by black candles, and a circle was drawn on the floor. My chest tightened, my breath caught. I stepped back, and by accident, kicked an empty bottle on the floor. The voices stopped. 1 second of absolute silence. And then, they all turned toward me. I ran. I ran without looking back, feeling invisible fingers clawing at my neck. When I reached my room, I locked the door and collapsed onto the floor. I tried calling someone, but the phone only gave static, the screen flickering with strange symbols. My brother was in the corner, murmuring words I didn't recognize. I shook him, yelled his name, but his eyes were glazed over, tears rolling down his cheeks without emotion. I heard voices outside, dragging footsteps, and then silence, the kind of silence that screams. A weight pressed against the door. Something or someone was there. I spent hours curled up, waiting, until I heard a soft, familiar voice. My adoptive mother. "Sweetheart, open the door. It's all okay now." My hands shook on the doorknob. My mind screamed not to open it, but something in me gave in. I opened it just a crack. Her face was smiling, but the eyes weren't the same. It was like staring at a painting pretending to be human. I slammed it shut, stumbling back, shoving the dresser against the door. That's when I felt it. The floor starting to crack beneath my feet. Tiny fissures releasing heat, as if hell itself was waiting just below. I no longer knew what was night or day. The watch on my wrist spun out of control, the hours shifting with no logic. I decided to leave. I crawled through the hallway, weaving between shards of broken glass. The smell of something burning filled the air. When I reached the front door, the handle scorched my hand. I looked back. My brother was standing at the top of the stairs, a sad smile on his face. He raised his hand in a small wave, but I saw something different. He wasn't alone anymore. Behind him, elongated shadows, with eyes that caught the light like animals at night, watched me in silence. Desperate, I ran into the yard. The sky was gray, frozen, like a lifeless painting. The trees were twisted, their branches like hands trying to grab the air. I looked back and saw the house, changing. The windows were smiling. The door seemed to breathe. I heard my brother's scream echoing, followed by a soft laugh, almost maternal. My memories started to blur. When we were adopted, the first hugs, the gifts, the quiet nights. And then I understood. It wasn't just a pact. It was a cycle. I wasn't saved, I was chosen. I felt the ground vanish beneath my feet. A sharp sound, like metal tearing through flesh, cut through the air. Before I blacked out, I saw something fall from my pocket. The necklace. It glowed faintly on the ground, the 3 interlocking circles burning with a pulsing red. My eyes closed, but my mind didn't rest. I floated in a limbo, hearing voices I couldn't understand, feeling hands that didn't touch me, trapped between a past that wasn't mine and a future that wouldn't be. And in that moment, I realized, some pacts don't end in blood. They carry on generation after generation. And now, it's my turn. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the room, but something had changed. The walls pulsed gently, as if they were breathing. My brother was beside me, his head resting on my shoulder, murmuring in a language that burned in my ears. I stood up slowly, feeling the floor warm and soft beneath my feet, almost like living skin. The windows were covered in thick mist, and the shadows on the walls moved without a source of light. I looked at the clock. The hands were spinning backward. Deep down, I knew I was no longer in the same place, or maybe the place had never been what I thought it was. I began walking through the house, noticing that the rooms changed when I looked away. The hallway where I'd grown up was now a narrow tunnel, with crooked pictures whispering my name. The voices grew louder, more intimate. I recognized in them the voices of my adoptive parents, but also my own, layered among them. My fingers ran along the walls, feeling the rough texture, and suddenly I noticed small eyes carved into the wood, blinking slowly. The weight of the house was now inside me. With each breath, I felt less like who I was and more like who they wanted me to become. I went to the front door, but when I opened it, I found only another room, identical to mine with one detail. I was inside, sleeping. For a moment, I thought about going in, waking that other me, but the air turned cold, biting, and the figure at the corner of the bed lifted its head. It wasn't me. It was my brother, or something with his face. My legs weakened, and when I blinked, I was back in the hallway, the lights crackling overhead. I started laughing, a nervous, uncontrollable laugh because I finally understood. There was no way out, there never had been. The house had always been watching me. The memories began to dissolve. The adoption, the first nights, the laughter in the living room. It all blurred, like a tape being rewound until it disappeared. Only the sound of voices remained, now inside my head, guiding my steps. I found the necklace on the floor, and when I touched it, images exploded behind my eyes. Other children, other families, all trapped in the same cycle, all believing they were special, saved. My fingers closed around the metal, but I realized I no longer felt pain or fear. It was as if I was being shaped to fit there into that pact. In the center of the room, the circle of candles was lit. My adoptive parents were kneeling, eyes closed, murmuring. My brother joined them without hesitation. I stood at the doorway, feeling the heat and dizziness growing. A deep sound ran through the house, like a heartbeat under the floorboards. And then I realized I wasn't the prisoner. I was the next link. They had chosen me because I carried something inside me that I hadn't even known. I felt the necklace tightening around my neck, as if it had never been just an object. It was a mark, a calling, a promise. I looked at the faces around me and, for the first time, understood their gestures. The way my mother fixed her hair, the way my father fiddled with his watch, the whisper of my brother before sleeping. They were all part of a ritual, all preparing me. And as the candles flickered and the whole house seemed to vibrate, part of me wanted to run, but the other wanted to stay. It was as if I had always been waiting for that moment, as if an ancient voice buried in my bones was finally waking up. When I closed my eyes, I felt the house folding around me, as if I were being swallowed. The sound of the voices turned into a chant, and the cracked floor beneath my feet gave way. I fell into a shapeless, timeless space, where memories came and went like smoke. I saw flashes of other lives, other houses, other packs. I saw faces I had never known watching me, smiling, and I understood. I wasn't a victim. I was an heir, a fragment of something far older than that house, than that family. And now, if you've made it this far, maybe you feel a chill on your back, a doubt caught between what's real and what isn't. If this video caught you, if the story whispered something you can't quite forget, then maybe you should subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. But only if you really feel you need to, because some stories don't end when the video stops. They stay with you, in the walls of your room, in the bathroom mirror, in the sound you'll hear tonight. Maybe it's just the wind, maybe not. Back in the void, I realize I can no longer distinguish my body from the surroundings. My name unravels at the edges of my mind, and the only certainty left is that I belong here. The sound of knocking returns, echoing in my head. I feel small hands holding mine, and I recognize the touch. Not my brothers, but the children who came before. All of them, they welcome me, pull me, shape me. And as I look at myself from the outside, I realize what I've become. A link, a bridge, a seed of what's to come. Maybe you think turning off the video will protect you, that the terror stays contained here inside the screen. But what if I told you that some stories don't need to be seen? They just need to be heard, thought, dreamed? Some doors, once opened, never truly close. Have you already started to hear the whispers? To notice the shadows where there was nothing before? Some secrets don't want to be uncovered, and they punish those who try. Now go, turn off the lights, and listen.